Welcome back to the Butterfly Season podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Jess DeRose, formerly known as Jess Glazer. She is a dear friend of mine. We have been friends for some time now, and I am so excited for her to share her journey of her butterfly season. She is a teacher turned seven-figure business owner. She's the founder of Digital Business Evolution, and she has created 8 millionaires from the ground up, literally just within her teaching, and has helped generate over, I think, 11 million in helping hundreds of people build their business. So she is incredibly talented at what she does, but most importantly, she's a great friend, and I'm so excited and honored to share her journey to butterfly season. Welcome, Jess. Jess, I am so excited to have you on the podcast. It kind of feels like a little bit of a surreal moment just in terms of like what we're here for, what we're talking about, and this like journey that I feel like I've got the opportunity to be on for the last, I don't even know how many months. So thank you for being on the podcast. I know that today is going to be like beautiful when we get into all of the things.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? This is so fun. This is work, by the way, which is so ridiculous. I'm like, we get to just have conversations as friends and we get to record them and hopefully help some people. So thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So you guys, it has been an interesting year for the two of us in so many ways. And I feel like, and we're going to get into it, but at least for me, I felt like, how did I even get the opportunity to be like involved in all of the things for you? It's just like really a testament of God will orchestrate in all of the ways for the people that you need in your life. And you have been that for me. But what I really want to get into today is a butterfly season of yourself that you have kind of gone through different iterations, but most recently with, I'll let you just jump right into it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm actually already crying. Aside from sharing on my podcast, this is the first time that I'm talking about it. So I'm really grateful, but you've been my fairy godmother in so many weird divine things that have just come up. So, I don't even know where to start. I mean, I guess I'll start with just saying that this could be a trigger warning for some people. So I'll start with that. And then I will go into, I run my own company. I run my own business. I'm an entrepreneur and I work a lot, and I've got a lot of people that rely on me, but also that I love to pour back into, whether that's clients or staff members, right? Like we have employees that are W-2 employees. And so lots of pressure. And the business has sort of been my baby for the last few years, even though I always say that it's not, because I think that's an unhealthy relationship to the business. But I don't have children. Mike and I don't have kids yet. We're married. We don't have kids. We do have a really cute dog. And so long story short, this summer, we finally we're just almost 40 years old, decided, you know what, let's just see. And so we saw real quickly. And basically what ended up happening was we put on a really, really massive launch twice a year for our audience. We have thousands and thousands of people that show up. It's a 12-day thing. And on day 3, I woke up with just crazy irregular bleeding and ended up having to go into the ER and found out that we were pregnant, which was cool, but we didn't even have a moment to process it because it was also backed with, and this is not viable. So there was no processing of you're pregnant. We never celebrated the fact that we were going to have a baby or that it was even real or that it had happened so quickly for us.
So up until that point, you had zero clue. It was just like, oh, wow, I'm bleeding. And
I knew intuitively I was pregnant. And I was 6 weeks. So I knew intuitively. The dog knew, which I had Googled, can dogs tell? Because he was acting so weird.
Like what?
Super protective, grumbly and growly at everything. There was a night that Mike wasn't home, and Montana is our dog. He was barking the entire night. Like he wouldn't stop barking, but nothing was happening. He just couldn't stop barking. And he's definitely a mama's boy, but he was like extra clingy for all 6 of those weeks. So intuitively, I knew, Mike knew as well. We just hadn't taken a test. And if you're listening and you're like, well, you're an idiot, you should have tested. I hear you. And the way that it worked for us was, and we're just going to go there, but it was perfectly timed. When I was supposed to have gotten my period that first month, I got it, or so I thought. It turns out it was implantation bleeding, but it was like perfectly aligned with the right 4 days. And then the second month, so I didn't test. And the second month, when I thought that I got my period on the perfect 4 days, that's when I was actually bleeding out. So in my logical brain, there was no reason to take a test.
Right. Right.
Yeah. But intuitively,
Okay.
I knew. I knew the whole time I was talking about it. Yep. So we're in the hospital. We find out pregnant, not viable. Okay, that's a lot to digest. And so they said, most likely a miscarriage. Let's go do some further tests. Now, mind you, we were like, I was just having coffee on the couch an hour before. Like, I don't have time for this. I'm in the middle of the launch. Like, this is not the plan, right?
Yeah.
And so they put me into some further testing. And long story short, they're like, your HGC levels, which I still don't really know much about any of this, they're 18,000, which means you are still pregnant. You are currently pregnant. The amount you've been bleeding, that would not be the case. That means you're still pregnant. So they went in, they're like, we can't find the baby. We can't find the sac. We can't find anything. So we think that you're having an ectopic pregnancy, which means that the embryo was fertilized and started to grow outside of the uterus. That could be on an ovary. It could be in an ovary, in a fallopian tube. It could be like many different places. However, I wasn't in any pain, like zero pain. And they said, generally when women come in, number one, if you're having an ectopic, typically you first find out because it's too late and it's already ruptured. And then number two, you're completely like bent over, keeled over in absolute agony. And I had zero pain. So they were like, we are going to rush you into surgery and we're going to go do surgery. And I'm like, what? No. Like, this is not happening right now. So Mike has a family member who's an OB, and we actually called her, not to be rude, to get a second opinion. It just was very like, what's happening? What is happening? Like, hold on.
Especially with no, you had bleeding, but no pain symptom, right?
Right.
And so, I can't imagine how hard that might be for your brain to be like, okay, you're telling me that I need to go to surgery, but I feel nothing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So she asked a couple questions, like, what are your HGC levels? And I told her, and she was like, you have to let them do surgery. Like, you have to. And I was like, okay. So that was it. They rushed me into surgery. They didn't even wait. I was eating in the hospital. Like, I was having snacks on the bed. Yeah. And they couldn't even wait the 8 hours for me before they intubated me, because they were like, this is so serious that if you rupture, it's like, it's deathly for a lot of women. It causes a lot of complications. You can go septic. So anyway, they rushed me in. And when I woke up after the surgery, the doctor had to tell me, obviously you lost the baby, but we also had to remove your right fallopian tube. And I was like, what? Like, so angry. And I signed the papers, like, do what you need to do. Thankfully, it didn't rupture. I didn't need a blood transfusion. They didn't have to take any other organs, which often happens because you go septic.
Really?
Yeah. So I was like, silver lining, but also, you just did what?
Yeah.
You just took part of my fallopian. Like, you took my fallopian tube? That's crazy.
And I'm sure that probably kind of felt like an invasion in some sense, because...
Yeah, very much so. I felt violated.
Yeah.
And that's why I say trigger warning, too, for this, because I know there are also stories that men and women both have had that are way more violating. So it's not a competition. It just, that is how I felt. I felt very shocked. It was a very traumatic experience. So that was like sort of the catapult to what then ended up happening. Yeah. That was the start of it all.
So and I'm asking because I'm truly unsure, but is after that, is the start of it Yellowstone?
Yeah, pretty much. So not the TV show. I love RIP, but we are actually talking about the real park in Montana. Yeah. So what ended up happening was, we have a team, so we had to contact the team, or we didn't have to, but we contacted the team. We let them know what was going on, and we're in the middle of this launch. I'm supposed to be on live every single day performing for 12 days in a row. So I took the next day off, and then I decided that I wanted to move forward with launch, which in hindsight, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't have, but for me, it was like the perfect blend of pretending it's not there, let me distract myself, and then really healthy crying and chick flicks and really bad dance movies. Yeah. So we moved forward with launch. So for the next 9 days in a row, I was basically a zombie, which at the time I didn't realize that I was disassociating.
Right.
Now I can see that, but I was basically a zombie. I pulled out completely from the business, and our team ran the entire launch, which was incredible, and served thousands of people, and nobody knew what was going on. But for me, I was also having this weird battle of Instagram versus reality, because I'm always super transparent on Instagram and have been for a decade. And I felt like my audience didn't know what was actually happening behind the scenes. Yeah. But I wasn't ready to share yet.
Right.
So I waited. Now bring us to basically 2 weeks after the surgery. I still have all these stitches, 3 incisions. and I had my post-op, and I asked if I could get cleared to fly, which would be the next morning. So it was up until that day I didn't know. She cleared me to fly. And so we all had a trip with our friends to Montana. So
yes,
flew to Montana, which was horribly painful. It was awful sitting in the plane.
wow. I mean, I don't know where the incisions are, but I could imagine just like the act of sitting down.
Yeah. But it was like, I want to do this. And also, just so everyone knows, Mike and I were living bi-coastal. So we had spent the winter in Arizona. We'd spent the summer in New Jersey. And that was the day, like when we flew to Montana from New Jersey, we were then going to be flying to Arizona, never to return back to New Jersey. So like that was part of the move out back to Arizona. So it was just a lot. We had to like pack up the whole apartment before we left. And then I wasn't sure. I just didn't know if I was going to go back to New Jersey to be with my parents, if we were going to come to Arizona. The whole thing was crazy.
I mean, it's a traumatic event and also in the middle of life transition. And so a lot of things are never the right time, but there's also so much that you have planned for. So trying to navigate through that, I can't imagine. And so where I guess I'm a little bit inserted into this story, we were all going to Yellowstone for a friend's birthday celebration. We were all going to stay there and just have a great time. And we had a spa day for the girls. The guys went fishing. We were there for, I don't know, a few days. And so we had a spa day, and our friend Lindsay sent out the itinerary, and on the itinerary it said, or not the itinerary, but like the services that you can choose from for like the spa. There was like, I don't know, facials, massage, this, that. And at the very bottom, like in tiny writing, it was like, it said, I don't know, something along the lines of like an intuitive will choose what's like the best thing for you. Like, meaning maybe a plethora of those things. I don't know. But I was like, ooh, wow. Like somebody can just see my vibe and tell me what I need. Like, cool, let's do that one. And it was like an extra long one. And I'm like, no, this feels like it'll be cool. We get there and everyone's like, oh, what service did you get? What service did you get? And I'm like, oh, the intuitive one. And everyone's like, I didn't see that. Where was that? I didn't see that one. And
I didn't have a service because they were fully booked, and I had to wait until the night before because I didn't know if I was flying, so they didn't have room for me. But I just did like a day pass because I didn't want to not hang out with you girls.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a service. And so then
I do mine. And before I even get there, like to do mine, I meet with, I don't even remember his name, but I meet with this guy. He's like my guide for the day. And I think asked me like, what are my intentions? And I was like, well, before we start, I just want to know if I could like split my service. I don't know what I'm doing. I imagine I'm doing several things. So maybe I can just do a little bit of the several things and split my service with my friend, because she wasn't able to book, period. That's all I said. She wasn't able to book. And then he was like, okay. And I wasn't here for this next part.
So we're all sitting around the fire. And by the way, all the girls got 60-minute massages. And so it was however many girls. It was everybody went, and you were the last one to go. So now everyone's just kind of waiting for the 2 hours or 90 minutes for you to go. And we're just having snacks. And so we're by the fire. And he comes out, and he's just this energy. Like you can feel him walking into the room. And he comes out with his thick Brazilian accent. He's like, Jessica? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, Aisha wants to gift you part of her session. And, you know, I'm 2 weeks out of surgery. I'm an emotional wreck, like absolutely. So I'm bawling my eyes out. And he's like, would you like to take, you know, half of her session? And I'm crying. And Lindsay's like, yes, that's a yes. She wants to take half the session. But I didn't know what that meant. So then he went back in and worked with you.
Yeah, he went back in, worked with me, and he did some like somatic something or other. Really, honestly, it was the craziest thing. I can't even explain it. He was like massaging my back, but also like breathing, and then just held me for a second. And then I started crying, and I don't know why I was crying. And then he walked me through this guided meditation and asked me to see a color, or no, I think he asked if I saw a color or a color he saw for me. I think it was a color that he saw for me. Well, while he was doing that, I felt like a sensation below my sternum. Like, I can't even explain it. Maybe like a flutter or something. But I felt like actual movement in my body around that area. And anyways, he talks about the color that he sees, and then I'm like, where is that? What color chakra point is that? Like, is that the same color of the chakra point of where I felt? I have to look it up on the phone. I never got around to doing it. My session's over. It was beautiful, nice, amazing. Then you go in. We swap.
Yeah. So the only thing I said to him was, can I lay on my back? Because I didn't want to lay on my stomach, and I didn't know if he was doing a massage or whatever. So when I walked in the room, he kind of took some breaths, read my energy, and said, I want to do a combination of Reiki and cranial sacral massage.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. Sign me up. Can I lay on my back? He said, yeah. So when he came back in the room after I laid down, he started to put his hands over my body and kind of like run up and down over my body as Reiki and feeling into the energy. And he just stopped over my uterus, over my womb. And he was having me breathe. And he started to say, same thing about the color. I want you to, think of this color and it's washing all over you. And my color, which I knew the chakra immediately when he said it, my color was green, which is the heart. And he said, for today's session, I want you to focus on, it's not your fault. And I want you to forgive. And now I have not told him anything. I didn't tell him I had surgery. I didn't tell him that I lost a baby, like nothing. So I'm bawling on the table and I'm resistant. I'm like, I don't want to do this. Not right now. I just want to hang out with my girlfriends. And he's like, just let it go. Like, you have to let it go. You got to let it go. So we do the whole session. At the end of the session, he asked, would you be open for me to give you some feedback for what I felt? And I said, of course. So he asked, have I lost a baby recently? And I'm like, my jaw's hitting the floor. I'm like, oh my gosh, literally 2 weeks ago. So we talked through some of the emotions that I was feeling and some of the energy that he felt. And then the crazy part was, as we walked out of the room, when they meet you outside with like a glass of water.
Yeah.
And they're like, how was your massage?
Yeah.
So he meets me outside. And what you might not know listening to this is I have 19 ear piercings. So basically 10 on one ear, 9 on the other. Like my whole ear is pierced with like little diamonds. And has been for over 20 years. And he said, I really love your earrings, but I'd love you to consider taking them out. I started working with a shaman a couple years ago. I used to have a lot of earrings, but my shaman told me that my earrings were actually blocking some of the meridian lines. And the meridian lines work in cahoots with sort of the chakra and then your central nervous system. I was like, okay, I'm unavailable for that. Like, it's part of my identity. I love them. Like, I hear you. That's cute. Thank you. Bye.
Right.
Yeah. And then I came out to you and I asked you if he did the color thing.
Yes. And then in my mind, as she's asking me, did he do the color thing with you? I'm like, oh man, like he's a phony. Like he probably told her the same color and the same things. But I'm not saying this out loud because we're talking about this experience and I felt like it was a beautiful moment for me. And Jess felt like it was a beautiful moment for her. And I didn't want to sour it. So just in my mind, I'm like, dang, he's probably a phony. And then Jess tells me, did he see yellow for you? And I'm like, wow, he must have seen yellow for her. Like, never mind. My experience wasn't real. It was just a duplicate. And then you shared with me that night that you felt like my color would have been yellow.
Yeah, I just picked that. And I told you mine was green, and then you were like, whoa, wait, hold on. They really were different colors and different chakras. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like part one. Then
yes,
if there are parts that I'm missing, but you have a mastermind.
Yep. So the next
later.
Weekend, we fly to, or I go to Arizona. Mike flies here to help me because I can't carry suitcases. So he brings me here. He flies back to New Jersey to get the dog in the car and drive across the country. And we host a mastermind for our clients. And I had you coming to speak and to talk about Whxte and to bring your jewelry. And to bring a piercer so that we could have a little like piercing bar and the girls could all set intentions and like anchor in the weekend and pierce their ears.
Yes. And so the piercer's there, girls are piercing their ears, and Jess is like, you know what? I think I want to pierce my ear, but like even despite what the guy said about taking all of my piercings out, I'm actually going to get another one. And so part of the process, the ear piercing process, the piercer will like make a mark by the location in which you want it to make sure, like when you look in the mirror, how do you like it? Do you like it in that area? Do you want it up, down, sideways, whatever? And Jess couldn't decide where she wanted the piercing. So it was between two places. Yep. And a friend of ours, Kelly was there. So you were asking us our advice on where on your ear. Yep. And there was one little part in her ear that looked like a uterus almost.
It was like a little nook.
A little nook.
Yeah.
And Kelly says, oh my gosh, put it right there because it looks like the baby's being held like in that little area. Like it's so cute. And you're like, you know what? Done. That's where it's going to go.
Yep.
So you get pierced.
So I get pierced. And remember, I have 19 ear piercings. So it's not my first rodeo. I get pierced and immediately regret it. Immediately. And I've never experienced something like that. So now I'm getting changed for dinner. We're doing like a high self dinner. So I'm upstairs. You're hanging out with all the girls. Everyone's doing their thing. The piercer leaves. And I'm like having a full freak out and I'm hosting this mastermind and I'm having a freak out in the bedroom upstairs. Like I have to take the earring out. So I run down and I ask you, I'm like, is the piercer still here? You said, no. What's the matter? I'm like, I want to remove the earring. And I want to make sure that I don't like, mess up whatever, my ear. So you gave me her phone number and you were like, just contact her, later in the week or whatever, and she can help you remove it. So then I didn't eat dinner. I had like this weird, now we're exactly 4 weeks post-op. So I'm exactly 4 weeks post-op to the day. I had this like weird anxiety, energy pulsing through my body. Like I couldn't eat. I had no appetite. We go home that night because Mike and I were staying in our home. So we go home that night. I lay down. Well, first I try to take the earring out. So now it's like 10 o'clock at night. I'm trying to take the earring out. It's bleeding everywhere. And like blood does not bother me, but I started to get queasy because there was so much blood and there was like, maybe like a Vaseline-ish type thing. And it's just like goop. It's disgusting. So he like helps me into bed. I can't fall asleep. Like 2 hours, I'm crying. He's like, babe, you're crying over an earring. I'm like, it's not the earring. It's like I'm self-sabotage. I'm trying to like distract myself from the pain in my stomach or the baby or this or that. And like, I'm sabotaging myself. I didn't listen to the man in Montana and I pierced my earring. Like, I'm just like going down this spiral of judgment. I finally pass out. And about an hour after I fall asleep, I wake up and I am like, I just drank like 12 Red Bulls in college. Like, buzzing. The energy's coming through my fingers. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I cannot fall asleep. I'm excited about life all of a sudden. And what I realized in that moment, or a couple of days after, was that I had sort of been disassociating and I had been sleepwalking through life. That's how I felt for the month. I was like, I was there, but I wasn't there. Whatever the piercing did, the whole thing just like shook me. So I was up from 2 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock when my alarm went off. I did not fall asleep. I get ready for the mastermind. I go to the mastermind, and now it's my mentor who I've worked with for a couple of years who's very tapped into spirituality. So I start telling him about this piercing that I had gotten the day before because he's speaking at the event. And he's like, oh, that's crazy. And as I'm telling him this, his girlfriend is there. And she's like, that's so funny that you said that because recently my shaman told me to remove all my earrings because they were blocking my meridian lines. And now I'm going into like a full panic. I'm like, I really messed up. I really messed up.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, all I can think about is this stupid earring and like I have all this energy and I don't know where to put it. And so the other crazy thing was I really wanted a stud because most of all my earrings are studs. And the only earring you had left was the moon.
Mm-hmm.
But the moon turned upside down, or sideways, I should say, looks like a rainbow.
Right.
And rainbows are like the sign that people use oftentimes for a baby that's been lost.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got this rainbow in my ear. Energy's going everywhere. I'm hosting a mastermind for 3 more days. I can't get the thing out. And I'm like just so upset with myself for, I don't know, for not listening to my intuition or something. What ended up happening next? Oh, I know.
Yes.
So,
mind you, I'm getting voice notes like as this is all progressing in real time. And I'm like, wow, like this girl's never going to be my friend again. Like, why am I the catalyst for all of these crazy things? She's going to be like, ma'am, whatever it is, no more of that.
No, not true. It was the opposite. So then I'm out to dinner. The mastermind ends. Now we're like 2-3 nights later. I'm out to dinner with some girlfriends and I'm telling them this story. And I still have the earring in, by the way. And I'm telling them this story because at this point I have all this energy and my creativity is coming back. I had taken a month off of like social media. I'm like kind of excited to show up again. And I was, okay, maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm telling them the story and my girlfriend looks at me. She's like, well, have you looked to see what meridian line you pierced? And I was like, no, that's a really good idea. So we're at the restaurant. We pull up Google and there's, I don't know, 100 meridian points on the ear. It's like acupuncture.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Probably 50. Probably 50 points, but it's like where they do acupuncture.
Yeah.
So the place that I was going to pierce, which at the very last minute I decided not to, was the meridian line for your wrist. the place that I ended up piercing at the very last second with you and Kelly was the abdomen.
Oh my gosh.
And so now I'm like, wow. And there's nothing else on the ear that's close to the abdomen. It's not like
wow.
like a uterus or ovary or like
Right.
belly button. It's just
Right.
abdomen, and it's the only one. So now I'm like, wow, I must have like triggered some electrical charge like to the abdomen. Maybe I did it to like help heal. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think I probably ran back and told you that. And then I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to leave the earring in. Fast forward another week.
Oh, that's right. Yes. You sent me a voice note saying you're going to leave it in because I felt so bad. I was like, was it something we did? Do you hate it? Is it design?
No.
Like, is it terrible? Oh my gosh. Like, we can get it taken out. And then you're like, I'm going to leave it in. It's all good. I feel great. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, it's like a nice break-free moment. Beautiful.
Totally. Butterfly season.
Yeah.
Except then a couple days later, I'm like cleaning it and then like the back is gone. I can't find the back of the earring. And so I have Mike looking at the back and it's gone. It didn't fall out. My ear completely healed over the back. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Okay, my body really doesn't want me to take this earring out. But
and
at that
was
point,
so fast. Like
it was like 8 days.
Like fast.
Yeah. It was less than 2 weeks. I think it was 8 or 9 days when we realized that it had been healed over. So I called the piercer and I was like, what do I do? She's like, okay, just come in. I'll do like warm cloth. We'll put some lidocaine on it and I'll just try to like push it back out. I'm sure it's not that healed over. Like the skin is soft. I'll just push it back out. I'm like, okay, great. That was on a Monday, but she couldn't get me in until Wednesday. So Wednesday night I go 45 minutes. She's trying to like get this thing out. I'm in pain. I'm upset. She's using like more lidocaine cream. We cannot get it out. So she ended up, I'm like, should we call it? She's like, yeah. So she called her mentor, who was an ENT, an ear, nose, throat doctor. And her ENT mentor said, no big deal. Just go to urgent care. They'll like nick it with a scalpel. They'll pop it out. Okay, great. So I go about my day, my work week. Saturday, I go to urgent care and the doctor was like, I am not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Oh. You are completely healed over. There's no way that I can get that out. I'm like, what?
Like, can we just like put into context really quickly, like how fast your skin and body had to have been moving to heal completely over?
Yep.
No anything in a week.
I know. Well, now we're coming up on like 2 weeks, right?
Okay.
And yes. And so she's like, there's too much. So for the record, I pierced like, I don't know, part of the inside of the ear where there's like lots of cartilage and stuff. She's like, if it was a lobe, I would maybe mess with it, but like, I don't want to give you scars. Like, no way.
Yeah.
You have to make an appointment with an ENT for surgery.
You're like,
do
you understand my trauma right now with surgery? Like, I am not trying to do this again.
Yeah. So I ended up, I had to find an ENT. And about, I don't know, a couple days later, a week later, I went to him and he obviously shot my whole ear up with like lidocaine. I mean, I couldn't even feel like my right side of my face, my jaw, everything. And he had to surgically remove the thing. Like it was crazy. And he like was working to get it. He couldn't find it. He was like working to get it out. Yeah.
That is
stitches.
Insane. I honestly couldn't even believe it when you told me. And I was just like,
but wait, we missed the best part.
Tell it.
So I have 3 incisions on my stomach.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And all 3 had stitches internally and externally. The external stitches were supposed to dissolve around weeks 3 or 4. Now we're on week 8 and they have not dissolved.
They're still there.
Still there. And we're at the point where I had called a doctor here in Arizona to make an appointment to go in to have them removed because they were like rubbing against my clothing and it was like really uncomfortable. So the night that he surgically removed my earring at 8 weeks, all 3 incision stitches fell out when I was changing at night into my pajamas.
Insane.
Yep. Yeah.
Insane. And where like in the abdomen area are those stitches?
So basically like a couple, like 2 inches in from your hip bones and then 1 in the belly button.
So literally abdomen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which, when she's telling me this, you guys, my jaw was to the floor. I was like, hold on. Where were you in that transformation process? I feel like this has been largely like a butterfly season for you.
Yeah.
Being like in the cocoon, kind of the disassociation. And then now there's more of a realization around things. You even had some crazy dreams.
Yes.
Where were you in this process?
That was the first. So when the earring was removed and the stitches came out, I think that was on like a Tuesday. And the next day was the first time that I had posted in social media in 8 weeks. And for the record, I don't think I've ever gone more than 2 days in 10 years without posting, because it's how I run my business. And I had taken 8 weeks off completely, not an email, not a post, nothing, no podcasts. I did nothing. And we do 2 podcasts a week. Like the team was on cruise control. They were repurposing, batching. And the next day was the first day, now that I'm thinking about it, that I showed up, which is really interesting. So sort of coming out of that cocoon of, I don't know if it was hiding or grief, or I think it was everything.
Yeah.
I think it was everything. And so really being able to tell the world, like, I'm here, I'm back. I didn't disappear. I just was like taking a beat for myself, but I'm here. I'm ready to work on the business. I started showing up on team meetings again, because I took 8 weeks completely off. So they were still running meetings, but that was the first week then that I came back.
So what changed? What triggered that like break free moment for you, would you say?
You, my fairy godmother.
Was it like the realization process of like, this piercing triggered a meridian point that made you like wake up almost, right? And then eventually, once it was gone, there's like this delay in terms of like waking up and then removing it. And then you're like, look, I'm ready to get back now.
Yeah. I think all of that. And here's the thing, we make meaning out of everything.
Yeah.
Or we make anything mean what we want it to. So you could be listening and think I'm a total kook, and that's totally fine. For me, those things meant things.
Yeah.
I made them mean things, and I maybe needed to grasp onto that. And so I'm okay with that. But yeah, I do. I think there were just like little markers here and there to just, I call them breadcrumbs, like to just show me the way, right? Like, take me back home sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell right now, being however many weeks out I am, because that was on September 17th. So we're a couple months now. I don't know that the process is ever over of anger, grief, resentment, frustration, sadness, right? Like, I think it will always be there, but it definitely took me that long to sort of be okay with being okay. And also, I knew from the moment that it happened, the moment I went into surgery, I knew I was going to share the story, because I think it's really important. What I learned was a lot of women don't talk about it, and ectopics are very rare. So miscarriages are 1 in 3 pregnancies, not women, 1 in 3 pregnancies. Ectopics are 1 in 100. So it's a lot more rare, and they're very serious. And so I felt very alone. And so I knew right away, especially having a platform and sharing so much of my life anyway, I knew that I was going to share. It was just a matter of when. And so that's really when it was kind of like, okay, this is time. And I still need time to heal, and I'm sure that will always be the case. But yeah, I'm not broken, and it's not my fault. And to really go through the ladder of emotions from that like grief and anger and resentment up to like frustration and why, right? Like victim, where you're just like, why me? I'm a good person. I don't understand. What did I do wrong? To then sadness, because if you remember back, we never celebrated being pregnant because we didn't know. And so then to start to be sad and grieve the loss of something that could have been. And it was like, oh, that could, like, we could have had a baby in April, right?
Right.
And then to just like, how do I show up? What do I talk about? I'm very apathetic about work during that time too. So coming out the other side, like, I get to do this. And not even sharing the story, just the business that we do. Like, I get to do this, and I love helping people. And, there's a clean and clear line between disassociating and distracting yourself with work, and then actually just like, no, like, I can turn it on and be here and be present. And then I can also be somewhere else. Yeah.
So hearing you talk about like the like ascension of the wave of emotions, I feel like it sounds like you have great emotional regulation. And when we talk about these things, we talk about them with our hindsight eyes, right? Like, oh yeah, this, then that, then this, and like, let yourself feel, it'll be all fine. How did you have to coach yourself through that process? Because while we're talking about 8 weeks, I feel like I would imagine in the thick of it, you're like, I don't know when this is going to end.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I have enough emotional intelligence to know that the surgery was on a Saturday. We got home that night at like 2 a.m. and on Sunday I called a therapist.
Yeah.
So I had enough emotional intelligence to know I'm going to need support through this.
Right.
I'm choosing to find support through this. This is not a battle that I have to, try to win on my own. And I don't even know what this battle is going to look like because I've never been here before. So
right.
Just starting to even share with some people in my intimate circle and asking for support from people around me. Do you know anyone that's been through this? Can you point me in the direction of a resource? Getting a therapist right away, making that appointment I think my appointment was Tuesday. Like it was right after.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what it was going to look like. And
right.
The emotion that we had going into finally sort of trying, for lack of a better term, we've always been apathetic. It's like we could have kids or not, and that's cool. And we loved our life without kids. And so I didn't think that I would have reacted the way that I did, which was like so sad.
Yeah. How did you think you would have reacted?
A little bit more blasé, like a little bit more apathetic. But I really was just like really angry about the tube. Like I felt very violated. That's part of my female reproductive system. That's an organ. That's like what is that going to do in my future? Did you just mess up my future? Which they didn't. You can still have a baby with one tube. You can actually have a baby with no tubes.
Oh, really?
They can do IVF. So they can they can take from your ovaries and do IVF and then insert, inseminate. So there's options, right? But it just felt very out of left field, very violated.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was a lot more anger and resentment than sadness.
Yeah.
But allowing myself to feel those things too. And just, there definitely was moments of blame, which I think when I would speak that to Mike, he was surprised. Like, do you really think that this is your fault? I'm like, well, whose else is it? Like,
yeah.
Did I work out too hard? Is it because I didn't know I was pregnant? Was it the boat? Like, what did it? Why did it get stuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you wish you would have told yourself? Like, knowing what you know now, is there something that you wish you would have told yourself, or what would you have told yourself, like in the thick of it?
I don't know that telling myself anything would have changed or mattered, because I don't know that I could have heard. Yeah. I don't think I was listening, because again, I was like disassociating.
Right.
Which is a safety mechanism, right? It's your brain and your body trying to keep you safe. It's fight or flight. And so there was just a lot of laying around crying and watching chick flicks. And so that's where I was in that season. And so also just being told over and over, Mike he's incredible, but like, it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to be mad. I remember one day I was probably 3 weeks in, and it was the first day I hadn't cried. And I was like, babe, I didn't cry today. Like, aren't you proud? And he was like, kind of put me in check and was just like, well, that's not the goal.
Right.
Like, the goal isn't to like stop crying. Like, it's okay. And also, like, not only did we lose a baby, but the emotion, what actually happens to your hormones. Like, I went from pregnant to not pregnant. So that drop in hormones, like, a lot of it really was just uncontrollable. Yeah. And so just allowing myself to sit with it. So I don't know that I would say anything. I mean, I would love to go back and hug myself and, you're okay, you're safe, I love you, it's going to be fine. But I don't know that I would have heard whatever I had said.
Yeah. I feel that a lot.
Yeah.
How have you been working through disassociation now? Like, was it something that just stopped?
Yes, when I pierced my ear.
Yeah. Literally.
But
at
actually,
that point. You guys,
crazy.
I don't necessarily recommend getting a piercing if you're suffering from disassociation.
No, I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying that fixed it.
It's not medical advice.
No. But yeah, it really was. It just like, I think there was a lot of things that were happening at the same time. If I could peel the onion, it was, we moved here. So we were back here, which is now our home. We're from the East Coast. That was our home, but we had moved out here. And so it was like getting back here, being in a routine again, having our space. It's a different energy here for us. It just is a very different energy. The piercing, the energy of hosting an event and being able to do that, which I hadn't done since 2020. And it's like my favorite thing to do. That whole weekend just re-energized me. At the end of the weekend of our mastermind, the videographer asked me, like, what's one word you, the facilitator, would say to wrap up the weekend? And I was like, selfishly, I am re-energized. Like, I'm ready to go. So I think it was just a lot of different things that were kind of culminating at the same exact time.
Right.
But the awareness would be the biggest piece. So the awareness that I was disassociating. And I had never done that before. I've never experienced, I'm very grateful to say, like, I've never experienced anxiety or panic or anything like that. And so it was a totally new thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where would you say you are now in your transformation process? Where are you in the scope of caterpillar to butterfly?
I'm a butterfly.
Nice. I knew you were a butterfly, but I just wanted to hear you say it.
Well, and I think there's a lot of pieces to that too, because our life and for me, our business run very parallel and they're very intertwined. So I don't like compartmentalize life and business. Mike and I even work together. And there are a lot of people, there are a lot of experts and gurus who will say that's bad. Like you should have date night and you should have time where you don't talk about the business. And so for us, we don't do that. That's not what works for us. It's very intertwined. It's life and business and play. It's all one and the same for us. And so we have very good communication with one another where we can kind of put each other in check. Like, babe, I really don't want to talk about that right now. Are you okay with that? Fine. We listen, you honor it. We can circle back whenever. But when I look at the life, like our life and business and sort of this next chapter, also what we didn't talk about was the cocooning that was happening before the ectopic. And so I had actually been in a state of, not disassociation, but I had been in a state of cocoon for about 18 months. Wow. And so I feel like there's just been a lot of healing, whether it was personal life stuff, business stuff, friendships, relationships. Even just on the business front, I shut down my entire Instagram account and built a new one with a brand new name.
Some people are like, she did what and why? Because you had a lot of followers on the old one.
I did.
Which for people in the coaching industry, people in business just in general know that, like, yes, it's a vanity metric, but there is something to be said in terms of perception or what people are buying from you, that the higher amount you have makes you more credible, even though we know that's not like an apples to apples comparison. But
so in January of this year, so we're coming up on a year right now, I took my account and it had 26,000 followers and a lot of media and press because I did a lot of things.
You literally you've gone viral in
the Wall Street Journal.
Yep.
Yeah, we did. And like to Forbes and like you name it. And I took that account and I shut it down. I didn't just like change my handle. I literally shut that page down and I started a brand new page with a brand new name, which isn't even my name.
I had no idea that everyone wants to say your name.
So when I say that I was in a cocoon season, I sort of went through a shamanic death or an identity death, an ego death over the last 18 months. I really was. I was in a cocoon season for some time, and it was a lot of shedding. And the reason that I shut that account down was multifaceted. So it was the account was 9 years old. I started it because of network marketing, transitioned it when I was in the fitness industry, was a celebrity personal trainer. Like it just had nothing to do with what I actually do, which is business consulting. So a lot of the people there didn't care what I was doing anymore. It was a lot of my old life when I was an elementary school teacher in New Jersey. And then I was this, trainer in New York. And so just energetically, I wanted to let that go. But I also, just some of my old beliefs, my old content, my old friends, my old clients, I just wanted to detach from a lot of that. And so when I started the new account, so my name is Jess Glazer, but my married name is DeRose, but I never actually changed it legally. And so when I started the new account, starting it as a different Jess Glazer, like without the dot or with an underscore, it just didn't feel different. It felt like it was the same thing. So I went to Jessica, which I've never used that. But I went to Jessica DeRose, which is technically my married name. And so the team pushed back and a lot of clients and friends were pushing back. Like, are you nuts? You've been on like hundreds of podcasts and you have all these articles and people aren't going to be able to find you. And I was like, well, that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point.
So walk me through what triggered your ego death. Like what were the things, what were the signs that you were like, look, like this life is no longer serving me in this way and I want to make a change?
I think a lot of us experienced this in 2020. So I kind of see it like a snow globe. And a lot of us I think all of us, the collective, the snow globe had been sitting for a really long time. So all the snow was at the bottom. And then 2020 took it and shook it, and it shook it like crazy. And there was snow flying all over the place. And how people approached that was very different. And so that woke us all up. And it was like, whoa, am I even doing things that I like to be doing? Do I even like my job? Do I even like who I'm living with? Do I have hobbies? I should have hobbies. And so for us, what that looked like was we were obsessed with the life that we were living, Mike and I, and we loved living in New York City. Oh my God, we're such New Yorkers. He would walk to work every day, suit and tie. I was like crushing it in the fitness industry with my business as well, in the business industry, and just going to events and just all the things, TV shows and news outlets. And I just absolutely loved it. However, when everything shut down, our life changed drastically, and everything that we loved about our life was taken. We couldn't go out and do the things we wanted to do in New York. And so over that first summer, we explored the options of a different life. And so what happened was it was very, just wasn't a great situation in New York. So we ended up going down and staying with my brother in North Carolina. And we stayed with him for 6 weeks, and Mike was working remote for his corporate job. And that was the first taste that we had at like, wait a minute. If you're not at your corporate job, then we can live wherever we want and we can do whatever we want. And so crazy, stupid idea time kicked in. He quit his job to come into my business because I was going to be hiring for that role anyway.
Right.
And that gave us the freedom to do whatever we wanted. So at that point, we put all of our stuff in storage. We bought a 40-foot motorhome, and we decided we're going to travel the country and see where we would want to live. And we thought that it would be like a quick little like yip-de-doo road trip. And it was actually 14 months. 27 states. I
had no idea it was 14 months.
Yeah, we were so proud that we crossed the year mark. But 14 months, 27 states, full-time RV living, full-time working together during the transition of him coming into the business. And we rescued the dog along the way. But we fell in love with Arizona. And so we stayed here, bought a house here, sold the RV. And to answer your question, it was leaving New York that was the beginning of the identity death. And
wow.
As much as we chose to leave, we felt pushed out. Like that chapter of our life wasn't done. We still miss it every day. And I love my life now, but man, we loved our life. Loved. We had just moved into our brand new apartment. We were there for like 3 months. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, we were so happy there. He had just gotten promoted. They actually promoted him again after he quit to try to hold him.
Yeah.
But he had just gotten promoted for the job that he was like working towards for 10, 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were just like in a brand new fresh chapter there. But when we left and we hit the road, I was someone who'd been journaling and meditating for, at the time, almost 10 years. And I remember being in the RV one time, probably in the middle of like Idaho or something. And I said to Mike, wow, I feel like this is the first time I've actually like taken a breath in 36 years. And I meditate every day.
Yeah.
And I could hear my thoughts. And that's what started the spiral, because it was the first time that I heard myself. And I was like, I don't know that I like what I hear.
Ugh.
And it was really hard.
Yes.
It was really hard.
I feel like when you start to do self-development, there's like this excitingness that you're like, able to see things, and you kind of see a little bit of like quick change in your life, but then you realize that it's like kind of never ending, or it is scary at like all that you feel like you have to work on and transform to like live fully in a butterfly season.
Yeah. And I would echo that. And I think it was the best gift we could have given ourselves, but it was pretty ugly at times for us. Our relationship had never been stronger. Like our relationship today is so much more incredible, and it already was. So we thrived on that aspect. But for me, comparison, uncertainty, self-doubt, all these like limiting beliefs that I had never experienced before. I had like dumb confidence previously. I would bop around New York on my phone, like talking to the camera, just saying my thing, never questioning my beliefs. And then kind of being in isolation, which I think a lot of people experience that. You didn't have to be out in the middle of nowhere to feel isolated.
Right.
But being in isolation together was where there was a lot of quiet. There was a lot of downtime. We were in the middle of nowhere. No one knew what we were doing, where we were. It was incredible. And it allowed a lot to bubble up to the surface.
Right. And how did you kind of deal with that? What was bubbling up?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I did it the best that I could. I had a couple tools. So I still meditate every day. I always have, but I went deeper. So it was like an hour and 20-minute meditations every day, which are dispensa. Journaling. I actually just recently opened my journal from that year, 2021. And it was really hard for me to read because I just was very unhappy. I was in a very sad place and very confused. So lots of journaling, lots of meditating, lots of conversations with Mike, with other people, EFT tapping. I mean, any tool. I mean, I was going to trampoline parks by myself when we were in the RV. Like I would just drive off to do stuff like that. Conversations, starting the new account, letting go of there was a lot of letting go of friendships.
Yeah. And in this, we've talked about 2 like butterfly seasons, really. But
Yeah.
I'm curious to know this RV life one. What was your break-free moment?
I don't think I had one during the RV life. I think I resisted, and so did Mike, if I could speak for him. I think we both resisted a little bit, that it was like, because it's almost like vacation versus like a new life, right? Like we weren't on vacation, and what we realized was that we weren't coming back. Like there was no like, oh, we'll be back in 2 weeks type of thing. Like we're still not back. We're not there. Our New York life is done. We could move there if we wanted to, but that chapter is done. That apartment no longer exists. Someone else lives in it. Like that is done. His job is done. He left. So I think it took a really long time for me to mourn all of that, because when we first left it, I don't think I realized that I was like leaving it. And then we were like, whoa, what did we do?
Right.
Yeah. And then how do you stay present and embrace what we're stepping into, which is incredible and beautiful. And there's so much to be grateful for. And this is a new chapter, and it's so exciting, and like butterfly season, right? It's an adventure. Right. But also like the cocoon back in New York was really comfy. It was really cozy.
I know. I've often felt like things were easier when I didn't know what I needed to work on.
Yeah.
Things were easier when, I'm just kind of like you said, like dumb confidence. Like I'm just living on autopilot and everything is just great. So yeah, I am so appreciative for you just giving us a glimpse of not 1, but 2 butterfly seasons. And I know that people are going to be able to see themselves in you. And I feel like I saw myself and other people when they were sharing their transformation. And that was like my realization that I'm like actually in a cocoon and I got to get out of here. So yeah. I appreciate you for spending the time with me today.
I love you so much. Thanks for having me on.
I love you. Thank you. And how can people get in touch with you? I know we've talked about your new Instagram handle, Jessica DeRose, but
yeah, come say hi on Instagram. It's definitely where I hang out the most. So I am Jessica DeRose. You can come hang out there. I have a podcast. We drop 2 episodes a week. It's either solo or there's experts or Mike is on there. We do mic drop episodes, and we do everything from business. Yeah, business to mindset, leadership, like everything in between. So come say hi there. We've got, the TikTok and the website. Everything's Jessica DeRose. So you can find me on the interwebs.
And we'll link all of that in the show notes for you guys. Thank you so much, Jess. I love you. I'm so appreciative of you. And I'm super honored to be a small fraction of your beautiful butterfly season journey.
I love you.